Welcome back to What You're Reading Wednesdays. Thanks for tuning in and spending time with us. Today, we're taking a look back at 2019. How many books did you read in 2019? Did you keep track? How did you keep track?
I technically read 48 books in 2019, and I do keep track, and I use Goodreads to do it because it's the easiest thing to do.
Well, I honestly don't know my exact number like you did. I use Goodreads, but I'm not super good about using Goodreads. So I would say my estimate is not 48. It's probably more like one every other week, so 25-ish.
I do use Goodreads, which is a free account. Anybody can open one up. You just have to register a little bit and keep track of all the books you read. And if you liked them, you can write reviews. So it's a really cool website. I read 64 last year, which was about the highest I've read. I usually stick around 52, and I thought, no, I'll go for it this year.
This year I read in the hundreds. I for sure, I'm like Angie, I didn't keep exact track, but one weekend I'll read between 4 and 5 books. And that doesn't include what I read during the week. So I would say some in the hundreds for sure. So I'm reading at least 5 to 7 books a week, roughly.
Unlike the rest of you, last year sucked for me. I had a terrible time. And I was not keeping track of the number of books I read, but I looked through my old planners where I used to scribble notes or whatever, and I know I read at least 5. Thank you.
I read 27, which is maybe more manageable for us normal people. My goal was 30 and I didn't make it.
I do use Goodreads, and I tracked 68 books, but most of them were manga and graphic novels, so it's kind of less impressive than it sounds.
That counts.
What was your favorite book that you read in 2019 and why?
I would have to say Good Omens, just because it's by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, and it was definitely one I should have read before.
One of my favorite books was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I might leave that for Tori to talk about because I think that's her favorite book.
I brought backups, so you go ahead.
I do too. So that was great. Also, I read a book called A Taste of Honey by Kai Ashanti Wilson. And it also is a queer romance with 2 people of color in a fantasy world. So check. Tori, you want to talk about Red, White, and Royal Blue?
Sure. I mean, that was probably my favorite fiction book that I read last year. It was queer romance, own voices, because Casey McQuiston identifies as bisexual, I believe, but either way, it was hilarious, and it was sweet, and it was adorable, and I would read her grocery list at this point, and she's only got the 1 book out, so I would say she's probably an auto-buy author for me from here on out. My favorite nonfiction book was, didn't come out last year, but I read it last year. It's I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. It's true crime about the Golden State Killer. And I think I liked it so much because she did her research, and it was well crafted. And even the ending of the book that she didn't get a chance to write because she sadly passed away before she could finish it. She 2 or 3 guys that she worked on the case with, took over at the request of her husband to finish the book for her. And it came out either right before or right after they actually caught the guy.
Right before,
that's right. And holy cow, there's the epilogue or whatever you want to call it at the end that she wrote. The way that they caught him and the way that she wrote that without even knowing it will probably give you goosebumps. So
Terry Pratchett's We Free Men. It's so cute. It's part of the Discworld series. I don't know how I would describe it, except for my friend called it kind of like a nighttime fairy tale, sort of. If we're going nonfiction too, last year it was really sad to say goodbye to one of my favorite authors, Cokie Roberts. So I actually reread one of the books that really started getting me into history back in the day, called Ladies of Liberty. And that's just kind of it's a series of just like vignettes about a number of the women who were instrumental in kind of shaping the nation.
And this one author is from Minnesota, and his name is Alan Eskins. And he's written about, I think like 5 books now. And this last one was called Nothing More Dangerous. And it was really good because it was kind of set in like the 60s, and it was kind of a coming of age story. A young boy in the South, and he has a Black family that moves in next to him, and all the things that go on between him and this boy.
Well, like I mentioned previously, I typically read nonfiction, but the one that I picked is a fiction book because I sat down and read it in like 2 days. My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing.
Oh yeah, that one's on my list, so no spoilers.
It's very, very good. So no spoilers, but 3 words to describe it would be marriage, secrets, and murder. It's a good page.
Out of the hundreds of books that I read, I had a very hard time narrowing it down, as you can might imagine. Then I had another harder time remembering what I read. So what I've decided to go with is Christina Lauren. That was introduced to me by one of my staff members, AKA Tori. And she really got me reading Christina Lauren. The first book, what I tell you, it was a bit much for me. It was called Filthy Boy.
Sweet Filthy Boy.
To say the least. So with a bright orange cover, so it's not like I could hide the book or anything like that. But what I really liked about one of the books that I read by Christine Lawrence called Roomies, I read that twice this year, and I really, really enjoyed it. It is a contemporary romance book, not so filthy. It's a cute little love story. About it has topics of immigration on there. Her parents were actually 2 gay men, which was really cool. One being African American, one being Caucasian. So that was kind of neat. Another book that I liked was another contemporary romance, but it was a little bit more urban, and was called Married to a Hood Legend by Twyla T. And I really liked that book because it was set in Mississippi, which even though I grew up in Germany, my family is originally from Mississippi, and so I just really enjoyed hearing about how things happened in Mississippi. And then one that's on my list to read is Becoming, if you guys can kind of see it.
It's up here.
Okay, well at least you have a picture.
Is too good.
Michelle Obama now.
Michelle Obama, I'm Michelle now.
Let's review some of the top books checked out through Overdrive at Grand Forks Public last year. Did anyone read Where the Crawdads Sing?
I did. I loved it.
I feel like I need to because it's so popular.
How about Educated, a memoir?
I'm listening to that one right now on audiobook. Very good.
How about Girl, Wash Your Face? Did anyone read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F?
I did.
And Justine, yeah.
It was enlightening, I guess.
Is that kind of like Don't Sweat the Small Stuff then?
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Did anybody read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone?
I did. I read that too.
Yeah.
Of course.
Don't we have unlimited copies of the book 1 in that series on Overdrive right now?
Yes, we do.
Oh,
No
Yes, we
wait.
do.
How about Michelle Obama's Becoming?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Did anybody read The Great Alone?
I read The Great Alone. It was good.
How about Before We Were Yours?
Yep, I read that one too. All these historical fiction books coming up,
Right.
you know. These siblings, and they got taken away from their parents by a lady in Tennessee who was a real person who ran some kind of Tennessee children's home, and she would take them away saying she was going to do something better for them. She told the kids that the parents had sold them to her so they'd have a better life, and really she treated them horribly.
How about 9 Perfect Strangers? Well then. How about The Tattooist of Auschwitz?
I read that one too. It's about a Jewish man, and he knew lots of languages, so they made him become the person who tattooed the numbers on their arms because he could communicate with several different types of people. And he finally gets one lady that comes through his line, and he falls in love with her.
Did anybody read Crazy Rich Asians?
Yes, I did. I actually watched the movie before I read the book, but the trilogy is really, really good. I recommend it.
Did anyone read Beartown?
I did. The book is really good. Everyone says that they, like, whoever tells me they are not interested, it's because it's about hockey. But it's really not. Like, yeah, these kids are hockey players and hockey coaches and whatever, but it's about way more than that. It was really good. I liked it a lot.
Did anyone read A Spark of Light? Did anyone read The Silent Patient?
Not yet. That one's like pretty high on my TBR, so.
Yeah, it's supposed to be real good.
And lastly, did anybody read Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine?
I read that one with my book club this past year. It's about a lady who's very set in her ways, and she always does everything exactly the same, and she speaks her mind. Whatever's coming through her mind, she'll say it, whether it comes out nicely or not. And it's how she meets somebody new that starts working in her office, and how that one little person changes the way she acts and stuff. It was interesting.
What is your reading goal for 2020?
So last year, since I read 48 books, I decided that my reading goal for this year was 52, which is the book a week.
Honestly, I don't. I'm really because next time I will have a concrete number. I'm gonna, go through all my stuff and see how many books I've read, and then I'll have a more concrete number. But it'll probably still be in somewhere in the hundreds. Just depends on how many good books come out, y'all. I mean, for real.
I set my goal on Goodreads to 30 again, and I'm gonna try to make it this year. I don't have a shortage of books. I have a short attention span.
Okay.
Me too.
Oh, hey. Well, because I haven't been counting for years, I kind of set it at just like an even 20.
So I had 64 last year, and it was really hard to get to 64, so I'm dropping mine down to 52. And we'll see how it goes, because I know I'm behind already. So
I'm right in line with Audrey at that solid 30 number. I was at 25, I'd say, last year, and I feel like audiobooks are helping me. Have you guys seen the memes about, like, I planned to clean my house this weekend, but instead I opened my book? Well, I'm kind of the opposite of that, where I have to have my house clean and then I'll sit down and relax and read. So I feel like if I can put an audiobook on while I'm cleaning, that just helps me get through. Because I want to read, it's just I'm very type A and I like to have my house clean first.
I'm with you there, 100%.
Well, initially my Goodreads goal was to read 50, but since I'm reading manga and graphic novels as well, I'm almost to that goal, so I set it to 100.
good.
But also, my goal is to read more books without pictures. Last year I only had 2. This year I've read 2 so far, and I think that's good. But I want to read at least 10.
Oh, hey, I read a really good kids book the other day. It's not really a kids book. We have it at the library. It's very touching. It kind of fits in with what we're going through right now. I can't remember the author's name. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. We have it in our graphic novel collection, and it's beautiful illustrations, and it's very, very touching. It's like the little boy comes upon the mole, and the mole says to the little boy, he goes, what are your goals? And he said, kindness.
Aww.
And he says to the mole, what are your goals? Cake.
Yeah.
There's a little humor in there too, but it's really cute.
I am the mole.
Yeah.
For real, me
Yeah,
too.
me too.
I want cake.
Well, that about wraps up this episode of Whatcha Readin' Wednesdays. Thanks again for joining us. As always, let us know if you have a specific request or topic. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Stay well, stay home, and stay curious. Take care out there. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.